from elsewhere. If Williamson comes in shortly, then we're basically going to be looking at all of the early vote together, all of the early vote. And I think that's a very important benchmark, because if Bain is leading with all of the early vote tallied, then the question just becomes, how big is the pad and how much slippage can she afford in that same-day vote, which we've only shown you from a couple of very, very small precincts so far, which could be varied as it's reported out across this district. So, again, we don't know the timing here. Some of these rural counties may start reporting out their same-day vote in bigger numbers while we wait on Williamson. But if we do get Williamson County here before we start getting the same-day vote elsewhere, you're essentially then this number, this district-wide number, is basically going to be the early vote. And I think that's an important benchmark for Democrats. If they have any chance of winning in this district, they need to win the early vote. They need to be ahead in just the early vote portion. Then they need to withstand it in the same day, which is a whole other a challenge for them potentially. But at a threshold level, Democrats need to be ahead in the early vote. So with Williamson County pending here, and again, we showed you what Williamson looked like in the 2024 presidential election. We've been seeing net improvements for Bain, in the 20, in the Davidson County case, 30-point range with this early vote. So certainly you can expect this early vote when it comes in Williamson County to be probably pretty tight, probably in the single digits for Republicans. If it's a really, really impressive number for Democrats, then Bain would actually win the early vote in Williamson County. And I think she obviously she would want to, but if you start to look at the math here, how many net votes she gains or loses from this early vote it's huge right now, because it gets to that question of how much slippage can she afford on Election Day. She doesn't just want to win the early vote, by 100 votes, because then if Van Epps is doing, even a speck better in the same day vote than the early vote, he'll win. She wants to win the early vote, and she wants to have a pad that can withstand. Okay, I think we just got another update. Is that right, Adam? A small same day? Okay, did we get some same day there?
Yeah, same day.
Okay, so let me call it up on the screen. And again, how many precincts?
4.
4 precincts. What was the early vote in Hickman?
70-28.
Okay, so the early vote in Hickman County was 42 points for Van Epps. We have 4 precincts. 4. So far in Hickman, where we've got same day, and this is the aggregate number?
80-19 is the aggregate number.
Okay, so the number of those 4 precincts collectively, it's a 61-point margin for Van Epps. So again, this is a limited number of precincts, but you're seeing it now in 3 different.
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close, but we also print signs so that people can see your business here, see it here, and see it here, so you stand out, even when they're way back here. Get 15% off signs and banners at Vistaprint.com.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform.
Certainly you're seeing it, and pardon me, I'm going to take a little bit of water here. It's not TV. I can take a break. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to take a little bit of water. I know the silence is weird, but I need the. Okay. So.
You can also look at the aggregate same day in your spreadsheet, because we got a few more in Wayne.
Oh, okay. But can we compare that to the early?
Not for those same counties, just for the.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Folks, I'm looking at one thing. Again, I don't know if you can hear Adam. He's giving me a little bit of guidance here on the same day vote. I want to look at. Right, so in the precincts I've shown on the air are the only ones we have. Is that right?
We got like 1 more precinct in Wayne and 1 more precinct in Perry.
Okay, and it was the same basic?
Yes, exactly.
So that's 8 to 10 precincts. Okay, so story hasn't changed much. We only have about 8 to 10 precincts so far in this entire district where we've got same-day vote. And again, they're from the rural, very Republican portion of it. So that's good news for Epps, certainly. The question for him is, again, is that going to extend to the less sort of core Republican portions of this district? That's one question. The second question is, how much better is he going to have to do overall in that same-day vote? Because, again, he may very well, I think it's very likely that just in the early vote portion, it's very likely that just in the early vote portion here, he's going to be trailing Bain, So he's going to have to outperform his early vote total with the same day. So again, we're just, I wish I could wave a magic wand and take a look here at Williamson County, because I think if we get that piece of real estate here in the next, in the next minute or so, I think that's really going to clarify what it is we're looking for with the remainder of the vote. I was hoping I could kind of talk it into lighting up, but it didn't. And so while we wait, I'm going to keep an eye on it, and maybe I'll finish a thought that I was starting when we got the Davidson County numbers. And that is that one other significance, I think, to keep in mind as these results come in, whatever the outcome is tonight, this special election is coming against the backdrop of what? This drama over mid-decade redistricting, the redrawing of maps in all of these different states to try to give one party or the other an advantage in next year's midterm elections. This district, has not been redrawn for 2026, but it is the product of that kind of a politically motivated redraw in this most recent round of redistricting, back heading into the 2022 election. And what I mean is this. Traditionally, I'm talking about going back to the Reconstruction days, post-Civil War. The city of Nashville was unified in one congressional district. And that district was basically an uninterrupted Democratic district, 19th century, 20th century, right up until the year 2022. Democrat Jim Cooper represented the Nashville-based district. The city of Nashville was the anchor of the district, and that had been sort of historically the case. Well, Republicans in Tennessee, redrawing the maps ahead of the 2022 midterms, they basically took the same approach. Put a pin in that. We just got some more vote. What did we get?
Wayne County.
More Wayne. What was the number?
We got 225 new votes. Just the cumulative is 8811.
Okay. No real headline, folks. I don't know if you could hear Adam, but again, it's coming. Wayne County, Tennessee is the king of same-day reporting so far. We got another precinct out of Wayne County. Same story. Small, rural, Republican, more Van Epps friendly than the early vote was there. But again, waiting here on Williamson County. So to finish the thought I was on a second ago, Nashville was the anchor of a unified Nashville was the anchor of a Democratic congressional district, for more than a century, right up to 2022. And what Republicans in Tennessee did in the redraw in 2022 was they said they wanted to, draw more Republican districts. So what would they do? They broke up Nashville and they split it up, portions of Nashville, into different districts. So that's how this district, which is rural, ex-urban, again, part of this district is even west of the Tennessee River in the West Tennessee, that grand division there. They added a quarter of the city of Nashville to it. So the idea Republicans had was, break up that Democratic district based in Nashville, parcels of Nashville into surrounding districts and make all of those districts Republican. So this was a safely Republican. We've been telling you, Trump won it by 22 points. Certainly looked in 2022 and 2024 like that was a fine strategy politically for Republicans. They had no trouble controlling the district. But now, in a potentially changed political climate, with Trump back in the White House, with all of the sort of political externalities we've been talking about, we're looking at a special election here. I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but as I'm looking at it right now, Republicans at the very least have had to sweat this one.
We should have a completed county, Decatur.
Yes. Hold on. Say it again.
It should be near complete.
What county?
With Decatur.
Decatur. Okay.
Yeah.
We got all the vote, folks, in Decatur. Again, small, very Republican. Okay. It says 95%. This may be it. This is close to it. This may be it. Again, very small, less than 2,500 votes here. But let's compare it. We've got our first full county where we can compare 2024 results. Donald Trump won this by 69 points last year, and tonight that is a 60-point margin. So that is a net shift in the only completed county that we have of 9 points. 9 points away from the Republicans, 9 points towards the Democrats. Again, district-wide, the Democrats need that number to be 22 points. So, again, that is an encouraging sign for Van Epps. Certainly, the numbers that we've been seeing in these other rural counties suggest you might see something similar in all of these counties right here. So that is a very encouraging sign for Van Epps. That said, he also needs to see similar, maybe not as dramatic, but he needs to see some similar strides when the same-day vote comes in, where there's a lot more voters and there's a lot more Democratic voters. He needs to see it in this portion of the district, too, because, a 9-point shift in the Democrats' direction right here may sound underwhelming, and it may prove to be very underwhelming here. But we showed you that in the early vote, Democrats were outperforming by 32 points in Davidson County. I don't know what I just did there. Democrats were outperforming by 32 points in Davidson County. If they were ever to continue at anything like that level, 32-point overperformance in Davidson County, that would more than wipe out what just happened in the rural part of the district. So again, for Van Epps, that is an encouraging sign. It's an encouraging sign that while there was significant drop-off relative to 2024 in the rural portion of the district, and again, what are we talking about here? We're really kind of talking about this swath right here, the one completed county, and all of the same-day vote that we've seen so far there suggests that Van Epps is doing significantly better in the rural areas in the same-day vote than he did in the election day vote. But again, you're talking about maybe, this is a big area geographically. It's about 15% of all the votes that are going to be cast in his district. He needs to see something like that, something along those lines happening in this part of the district, too, if he wants to get out of the woods and if he wants to build a big lead here. Meanwhile, the fact that he's doing that in the rural part of the district underscores for Boehne and for the Democrats the importance of continuing. When we get same-day vote in Davidson County, Boehne and the Democrats needed to continue to look something like this. Because if they're not getting the kinds of gains they need down here, they need bigger gains than they expected in a place like Davidson County, a place like Nashville. And again, it also underscores for them, we said this at the top of the night, the lone, I think, swing county in this district. Williamson might fall into that category, but the lone real, I think, swing county in this district tonight, right here in Montgomery County. And again, the same holds true with those rural areas, with Van Epps doing a little bit better same day, doing significantly better same day than early. It underscores for Boehne the need to be able to win here in Montgomery County. Or get very, very close to it. And again, she leads by 3 points. That is the early vote that you've seen tally there. Question is, what's that going to look like when the same-day vote comes in? The other thing that I wanted to look at here, this is a good chance to do it. Again, in last year's presidential election in this district, more votes came out of Montgomery County than any other county. The second biggest share of votes came out of Davidson County. What does it look like in the early vote? Well, okay, you can do the math here. That's a little bit less than 20,000 votes. Between Boehne, 9,700, Van Epps, 9,100. You're looking at a little bit less than 20,000 votes cast so far in Montgomery County. And then in Davidson County, you're looking at more than 20,000. You're looking at more than 21,000 votes, just about 21,000 votes, I should say. There's some third-party candidates here it's about 21,000. So it's about 19,000 versus 21,000. So at least in the early vote, now, unlike 2024, we have higher turnout in Davidson County, the core Democratic area of this district, than we see in Clarksville, it's sort of the swing part of the district. So that's we said that one thing Democrats wanted to see, among others, was the highest turnout coming out of Davidson County. In the early vote, that is the case. We'll see if that continues same day, or did Democrats kind of burn it all out on that early vote. So we'll kind of take a look here. And it looks like what's happened here as I've been talking and waiting on Williamson County. Again, when Williamson County fills in, that 44% in is going to go a lot higher, very quickly here. But I see that the numbers have tightened, and so I'm going to ask my producer Adam, where have we gotten it in the last few minutes from?
Yeah, we're standing by for Williamson. It may be coming in soon.
Okay.
We did get Election Day vote in Dixon. It is not all the Election Day, but it's a few precincts.
Okay. So, again, I don't know if folks heard, but we think Williamson, I said this, that Davidson was imminent a few minutes ago, and then it lit up. I think Williamson may be imminent. We'll see if it lights up. While we are waiting on that, we just got some more same-day vote here. Now, this is Dixon County. Again, this is about 8% of all the vote is going to come out of here. This is a Republican county, but we've got a fair amount of same-day vote here. So let me ask Adam, what was the early vote in Dixon?
The early vote was 25-point margin. It was 62-37.
In the same day?
And the same day it's running at a 44-point margin, 72-27.
How many precincts?
That's, I believe, 4 precincts.
Okay. So this is,
About
again,
1,500 votes.
Okay. So
Williamson just is coming.
Okay. Same pattern. Dixon, Van Epps doing better same day. This is a huge, huge development. And there it is. That's the early vote in Williamson County here. Suburbs of Nashville, big population, dense part of this district. And there you can see it. Van Epps, 55, round that to 55. Bain, 44. An 11-point margin for Van Epps in the early vote in Williamson County. 11 points there for the Republican. This was 30 in 2024. So that is a shift in the Democrats' favor away from the Republicans of 19 points. To be honest, if you're a Democrat and you're looking at this, I think you're disappointed right now. I think you wanted this number to be higher because, again, we have indications here, certainly in the rural part of the district and certainly from past experience, that same-day vote is more Republican, is less Democratic. So this may well be the high watermark for Bain in Williamson County. And if the high watermark for her in a big part of this district, the suburbs of Nashville, if the high watermark for her is a 19-point net improvement over 2024, that's probably not going to be enough because, again, district-wide, she needs this number to be running at 22 points. It's at 19 in Williamson County in the early vote. If that number, if that 19, as the same-day vote comes in, starts sliding down, 17, 15, 13, that's going to make the idea of Bain winning this, that's going to move that much farther from her grasp, I think, potentially. We were looking at this blank piece of real estate, Williamson County, and I was saying, I think Democrats were hoping that would be, when it lit up with the early vote, a single-digit early vote county. They didn't get that. That's 11 points. I was looking at what happened in Davidson County, where that Democratic performance is so strong in Davidson County, and I was asking myself, did that spill over the border into Williamson County? Was there a scenario where Bain actually won the early vote in Williamson County? If that had happened, I'd be sitting here right now telling you, I think Bain's got a shot to win this thing, but it falls at 11 points. So what does that do district-wide here? That puts Van Epps back in the lead, tenuously, narrowly. We are talking about a margin there of 298 votes right now, separating the two of them. But Van Epps is ahead. All of the early vote in this district is now in. The trend line that we've established, the pattern that we've established in the rural part of this district is that Van Epps is doing better. We're talking 10, 20, maybe more points, net points better in the same-day vote than he did in the early vote. So again, as the second half sort of the results come in, if in the first half this was basically a tie, if in the early vote it was basically a tie in this district between the candidates, at least in this portion of the district, you're certainly seeing Van Epps do better in the second half, in the same day half, and it really then becomes, what are you seeing in the population dense sort of eastern northern part of this district? And I think what that really comes down to, in my mind, is, first of all, this. When we get the same-day vote out of Davidson County, I think now Bain, again, she's winning by 71 points in the early. She's got to keep doing that. She's got to keep doing that. And she needs, we don't know how many people went out and voted in person today in Davidson County. She needs there to be a flood. She needs it to be, because she's got to offset. She's got to offset what I'm talking about elsewhere. And I think now she's got to offset a little bit of a disappointment there in Williamson County. She would also, for that matter, I think, have to hope that Williamson County, that same-day vote in Williamson County, maybe is a little bit surprisingly more Democratic than we would expect based on what we're seeing so far. So I think that the same-day vote that we've gotten so far in the rural parts and that early vote out of Williamson County, certainly I think you'd feel better right now if you're Van Epps and the Republicans than if you're Bain and the Democrats. But we need to see what happens there in Davidson County. And we need to see, again, what happens here in Montgomery County, where we do have, it looks like, some same-day vote.
We have a little bit of same-day vote in Montgomery. We have about 2,500 votes that came in.
Yes.
From, I believe, 6 precincts.
Hang on, do me a favor, Adam. What was the early vote? Remind everybody in Montgomery.
It was 51-48 for Bain.
Uh-huh. And what do we have so far?
And the election day is coming in 51-48 for Van Epps.
Okay. So this is significant, folks. We've got, it's about 6 precincts here in Montgomery County, where the city of Clarksville is. Remember, I said this is probably the swing county tonight. Afton Bain, the Democrat, won the early vote here by 3 points. In the 6 precincts that we've got same-day vote from, Matt Van Epps, the Republican, is leading by
I lost $50,000 because I didn't buy a domain name. My advice, head to Wix and grab yours now. It's quick and it can make all the difference. Here's why it matters. Back in 2019, I had this killer business idea, but I delayed getting the domain name because I wasn't ready. That was a huge mistake. Someone else grabbed it, built the exact same business I planned, and now they're making all the money that I could have been making. And that's why I'm sharing this. Locking down your domain name is crucial, and on Wix, it's super fast. They handle all the tricky tech stuff for you, making it seamless. And honestly, having a domain name gives your idea instant credibility. A domain name isn't just a name, it's a way to claim your space and take your idea seriously. Because once it's taken, you're stuck paying a premier price for it or losing it. So go to Wix right now, search your idea. If the domain is available, grab it.
Just reset overall here. 56% of all the vote is counted. That's a 0.7 of a point difference there. Van Epps, remember, he took the lead here when you got that Williamson County vote that came in just a few minutes ago, that early vote in Williamson. Now, as we've gotten some subsequent updates, he's leading in the same-day vote in Montgomery County. He's had big margins, bigger margins in the same-day vote in the rural part of the district. And so that lead for Van Epps is starting to tick up as the same day comes in. And I think basically the story that you're looking at right here, depending on the timing, if it does take a while to get the same-day vote out of Davidson County, then I think what you're looking at is this number is just going to continue to climb now. That's going to go over 1,000. That's going to go a couple thousand. This number is going to go over 50%. I think Van Epps, as the same-day vote comes in all through here, Van Epps is going to build a cushion for himself. The question is, how big is that cushion, and are there enough votes left? Are there enough votes left, and is there a big enough margin in Davidson County when that same-day vote comes in for Bain to wipe all of that away? That's a very tall order for her, and my producer has something. Adam, what?
We covered our first completed county in Decatur. We also got our second completed county in Perry.
Okay. Why do I keep doing that? Okay, this is our second completed county. Again, I think I know where this is going. Adam, what was the, oh, we don't need it anymore. We just need to show you. It was 69 points in Perry County. Very, very small, rural here. 69 points for Trump last year. And what do you see here? That's a margin of about 55 points, 76 to 21. So that is a net shift of 14 points. 14 points away from the Republicans towards the Democrats, again, in a small, rural, very Republican county. So we've had, I think we have 2 completed counties right now. And the shift in one of them from last year is 9 points. Is it 9 points, right? Towards the Democrats. And we're seeing a shift here of 16 points to the Democrats. 14 points to the Democrats. Sorry, I lost my train of thought right there. So those are Democratic shifts. They're smaller than the 22 Democrats need, but that's what we've seen in 2 Republican rural areas. Let's reset this. 55%, 703. So we are where we were a minute ago. And again, yeah, it kind of depends on timing here. You know, if in the next couple minutes, Davidson County reports its same-day vote, then Bain is going to, bolt into a big lead in this tally right here. And the entire story is going to be, can she hang on as the rest of the district fills in? If Davidson takes a while, and Davidson, I think, in the fall, there was about an hour lag between Davidson's early vote and the release of its same-day vote. If we see a lag like that, then the opposite's going to happen. Van Epps is going to open up a big lead here as the rest of the district sends in its final results. And that's what we just got. Where was that from, Adam? I see a big batch just came in.
Williamson.
Okay, so we got, this is not all of it, but this is a big chunk of the same-day vote in Williamson County. Again, suburban Nashville we're talking about right here. And this, again, these numbers, I said when the early vote came in, it was good news for Republicans. This is very good news for Republicans. So this is a 30-point margin in Williamson County. Last year, you can see now with some of the same day in already, Van Epps has it up to 18 points. This is a big piece of real estate right here. And the Democratic gain right now is only 12 points. Remember, in the early vote, it was Adam, what was the early vote here?
Early vote was 55-44.
Right. So it was 11 points. It was an 11-point margin in the early vote, right? It's now an 18-point margin. So that's how favorable to Van Epps the same-day vote is so far in Williamson County. He won the early vote by 11. He now leads the tally with more early vote to come by 18 points. He's moved that number closer to where Donald Trump was in Williamson County back in 2024. Only a 12-point gap right there. Again, if you're Republicans, that's a very encouraging sign for you. If you're Democrats, you do not like what just happened. You don't like either of the updates you got in Williamson County if you're a Democrat tonight and what that's done. And we just got another update. Where was Adam? I see it went to 4,000.
Yeah, we got 2,600 votes in Robertson County.
Yep. Okay, so we're getting same day.
day.
Yep. Now tell me, what was the early vote in Robertson?
It was 67-32.
So it was 30. The early vote in Robertson, again, very Republican here, about 10% of the district. It was 35 points for Van Epps in the early vote. What is the current same-day vote?
76-22.
54 points is the margin in the same-day vote in Van Epps' favor. So again, he is building that lead. He led by a sort of underwhelming margin with the early vote, but he is getting what he wants to see in the same-day vote. And now you can see, with more same-day to come in Robertson, Van Epps has that margin up to 40 points. What's the margin in 2024 in this district? It was 51. Again, this is now, at this point, with more votes to come in, and I think you can expect they're probably going to be Republican-friendly votes. Already, Van Epps here is within 11 points of the margin Trump got. We said this, Republicans lose, Democrats win. If Democrats can make a 22-point shift, it's only half of that in Robertson County with more vote to come. And clearly, that is a Republican vote, an even more Republican vote that's coming in with the same day right there. These same day updates for Van Epps have been very good. We kind of expected it in the rural areas, weren't sure what to make of it. What he got in Williamson County same day, that's extremely encouraging for him. What he just got in Robertson County, as encouraging, maybe more encouraging. His margin now opens up to 7,300, which means with about 2/3 of the vote now tallied in this district, he leads this by 7 points overall, 7,300 votes. That means more just came in somewhere. What was the biggest source of votes we just got?
4,000 votes in Montgomery.
We got more from Montgomery. And okay, we said at the outset, the swing county in this district. I said, tell me who wins Montgomery County. You've taken a big step to telling me who wins this district. Afton Bain, the Democrat, won the early vote in Montgomery County. She won it by 3 points. The same-day vote has been coming in, and holy smokes, it's a Republican vote, right? Tell me, Adam, what is just the same-day vote in Montgomery?
The total cumulative is 61-38.
Okay. So again, Bain won the early vote in Montgomery County by 3 points. Now, and we've got a sizable number of precincts here and votes coming in same day in Montgomery County, a much better sense of what that same day vote is. Van Epps is winning the same day vote by 23 points. So it's not just a small difference between the same day and the early. It's a big difference. It's a big Republican-friendly difference here. So again, take a look. 2/3 of the vote in Montgomery County. We called it the swing county in this district at the outset. Let's compare it to what happened in 2020. 2024. This was a Trump by 18 points county. Now tonight, with more votes coming in, and we just showed you that trend line is very Republican with those votes coming in same day in Montgomery County. Already a 4-point lead for Van Epps there. So that means that's a shift at this point. That is a shift of only 14 points in the Democrats' direction, 14 points away from the Republicans. Again, the target number for Democrats has been 22 points. They want 22-point shifts. On average, it's at 14 right now in one of the most critical counties in this district. And I suspect that 14-point shift is going to get a lot lower as more vote comes in. Because, again, we are seeing, I think a storyline is really developing here about that same-day vote, the vote that was cast today in person, being very Republican. Republicans were saying they thought they maybe woke their base up in the last couple days. Numbers like this suggest they very well may have. Let's look at the district-wide vote, 8,100. Adam, what we got?
We have a few more completed counties, Wayne and Benton.
Okay, so now we've got, again, we're going into sort of the, this is a partial county here, west of the Tennessee River, small, very Republican, very rural, but let's get on the record with it. Donald Trump won this by 65 points last year. We've got all the vote in, we think, in Benton County here. That is a 56-point margin for Matt Van Epps over Afton Bain. That is a net shift there, away from the Republicans towards the Democrats of 9 points. Remember, rule of thumb, we've been looking at how close is this to a 22-point shift. That's what Democrats need to win it. That would be disaster for Republicans the closer you get to 22 or over. It is 9. That's the shift in Benton County, a 9-point shift. Did you say, Adam, we got full results in another county?
Wayne.
We got Wayne County, Alabama border. I think they were the first to report out results earlier. Again, very small, very rural, very Republican, but Trump won this by 77 points in 2024. What are we looking at? That's 70 on the dot, the margin for Van Epps over Bain. Shift away from the Democrats towards the Republicans in Wayne County of 7 points. Target for the Democrats, disaster for the Republicans would be 22. We are a long way, you can see there, from 22 points. Van Epps holds it to only a 7-point decline net in Wayne County. Again, you just see this pattern here, this same-day vote. Not maybe a big surprise in these small, rural Republican counties, but certainly in Williamson County and certainly up here in Montgomery County, that's been the story as Van Epps builds this lead now to 8,500 votes. 2/3 basically in district-wide here. That's a margin now sitting at basically 8 points. And I want to check.
I haven't gotten anything done, and I'd waste the day prioritizing my short-term pleasures over my long-term goals. So let me show you how I solved that. See, this isn't like any other tool. After using it, I had the most productive month of my life. Sorry, that's my impulse control.
Is 8,500 votes. We've got roughly half the vote in here in Davidson County. We don't know how many votes exactly were cast same day, so this is a rough estimate, but it might be about 21,000 votes. So if you're looking at about 21,000 votes right here, okay, if Bain is winning it, let's say 81-20, okay, that would be about 17,000 to 400. Again, let me take you through what I just did in my head so it's clear to everybody. Bain is leading the early vote 85-14 here in Davidson County. It's pretty clear Republicans are doing a little bit better with the same day than with the early. Now, this is an extremely Democratic county. I don't think Republicans are going to do that much better. So let's say the remaining vote is 80-20 Democratic. Let's say there's about 21,000 votes left in this very Democratic part of the district. What would that translate into? That would be about 17,000 new votes for Bain. That would be about 4,000 new votes for Van Epps. In other words, that would be a margin of about 13,000 votes for Bain. Again, these are big ifs, back of the envelope, all this stuff. But just keep in mind, if we say she is going to net an additional 13,000 votes out of Davidson County, what would that do to the deficit she now faces district-wide? Well, there you go. She trails by 8,700 district-wide. If we now dumped in a 13,000 vote plurality for her in Davidson County, she would vault into the lead district-wide by 4,300 votes. Then what would be left? What would be left outside of Davidson County? I'm going to look right here, and I'm going to tell you. We still think, give or take here, this is the most significant, I would say. Yeah, Robertson County, the biggest outstanding source, I think, of overwhelmingly Republican county left, the biggest outstanding source right now, we think a very Republican, would be right here in Robertson County, right? Robertson County, which is running 69-29 for Van Epps. Give or take, rough back of the envelope calculation here, 7,000 votes remaining in Robertson County. I mean, if Van Epps just wins those 5,000 to 2,000, I think that's a conservative estimate, he nets 3,000 votes. And if he nets 3,000 votes there, we just told you, if Bain were to get what we said out of Nashville and pull ahead by 4,300, with what's left in Robertson County, Van Epps could probably knock this thing down to 1,300. What would be left after that? You'd still be looking at probably more than 10,000 votes in Montgomery County, Clarksville, where we see Van Epps running up the score so far in the same day vote. And there still remains, there's not much of it left, but I'll just, there still remains probably about 2,000 votes, give or take, in Dixon County, right here. There probably remains, in Cheatham County, it's probably about 3,000 votes left. These are all, they're Republican to start with. And what they're tabulating right now is the election day vote, the same day vote. So what's coming in is not just Republican, it's like super Republican, it's extra Republican. So long way of saying, take a look at this, 65% here. Now we got another update in to pad that Van Epps lead a little bit. I think at this point, obviously you're a Republican, you are feeling great right now. If you're a Democrat, you're probably right now thinking about how can you maybe phrase this as a moral victory. But the reason we're waiting here still on Nashville, I'm sorry, what did we just get?
Davidson.
Okay. This is not all of it, though, right?
We got 6,000 votes in Davidson, and we just got 3,000 in Montgomery.
Okay. We got some of the remaining vote in Davidson. They didn't do this all in one batch. So take a look here. 2/3 of the vote is in it. Remember, the early vote was 50%. When we got the early vote in Davidson County, that took you to half the vote in. We now have 64% in. So what just came in Davidson County was a batch there of that, about 30% of the same day vote. Here's the key question. What was the early vote in Davidson? 84-14?
In Davidson, it was 85-15.
Okay, it was a 70-point margin for Bain in the early. What is it now in the same day?
72-27.
45. So that is a discouraging sign if you're a Democrat. That's a very encouraging sign if you're a Republican, because we were just going through some math scenarios here about, could Bain get a massive number out of Davidson to put her ahead district-wide and then absorb all of this sort of Republican success in the rest of the district. I was basing that on the same day vote in Davidson theoretically breaking 80-20 for Bain. What we're seeing right now, at least, is not 80-20, it's 72-27. So the plurality I was kind of playing around with just to see how the numbers might work, right now with the same day vote, Bain would get less than what I just took you through right there. So again, she needs, she would just basically at this point need there to be a lot more votes overall in Davidson County than we are estimating, because she's still winning it by a big margin. But look, even with that, that's a big chunk of the same day. She's still down 7,400 district-wide. In fact, we could play it out based on that. Why am I sitting here talking in generalities when we can give you an actual number here? With that update from Davidson County, right? Okay, so we think probably about 15,000. About 15,000 votes left in Davidson County. Let's say it's 15,000. Okay, we just said 72-27. Let's get the old calculator out here. 72-27. Let's say it remains 72-27 for 15,000 votes. That would be an additional 10,800 for Bain. 27 times 15,000. That'd be an additional 4,050 for Van Epps. What is that? That's a difference of 6,800 votes. It's about a 6,700. Yeah, she would net about 6,800 new votes if that's what we see for the rest of Davidson County. About 6,700 more votes. And right now, district-wide, Bain trails by 8,000. So it's just, frankly, it's very hard to see. If you're trying to sketch a scenario here for Bain, I think now we may be moving to that phase where Democrats are thinking about, can they try to sell this as a moral victory? Can they say, look, they made a massive gain here in a Republican plus 22 district? I think we may be getting to the point where Republicans try to say this was a solid victory for Van Epps that kind of maybe cools the sense that political crisis was enveloping the party. You can see right now that the margin is 6 points, about 6.5 points district-wide for Van Epps. I think we just showed you that with what's left in Davidson, Bain could take a chunk of that out, but there's still going to be, outside of Davidson County, I'm just quickly counting up, 20, 25, 29, 30, 33. I'm going to say, give or take, there's still going to be about 33,000 votes to come district-wide outside of that. So 33,000 votes additionally outside of Davidson County. There's going to be, probably about 33,000 votes from the rest of the district. Van Epps is cleaning up. He's cleaning up in that same-day vote. So if this isn't just Republican, if this is super Republican vote, Van Epps may have an opportunity here to pad this margin. It's going to take a dent. Whenever the rest of Davidson comes in, this margin is going to take a dent for him. Now, we just got what just came in, Adam?
We just got some Humphreys.
Okay. Humphreys County, small, rural, Republican just came in, pads the Van Epps margin a little bit right there. Was there a little bit more?
We got 1,000 votes in Robertson a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can, to complete the thought, you could see Van Epps opening this up a little bit. Again, the only place right now left on the map where Democrats are going to be able to cut into this, probably is right there in Davidson County. And we just showed you what we think is probably roughly left to come in Davidson County. Hard to see that being enough to erase this. Or it still looks like it's going to bring Bain a few thousand votes short, and then, she could suffer some more serious slippage in the rest of this district. So I'm really interested right now to see where the final margin in this thing is going to land. One thing I want to know kind of overall, and I'm going to go into my computer right now, what is the same-day vote overall running at in this district? It is, that's first vote, Adam, right?
Yeah, 64-35 is the cumulative.
Yeah. And that's very, so, okay. We think this is a real, I think this is a dramatic way of, I think this captures it kind of perfectly what's happened here. Remember, as these numbers were filling in, we kept talking about it's the early vote. There's some same-day mix. Okay, we think we basically know what the cumulative early vote only in the district was, and we think Bain in the district probably won the early vote by 5 points, probably about half the vote that's going to be cast in this district, maybe a little bit more. She wins that portion of it by 5 points. Now, the other, what we got? There it is, folks. I've been dancing around it. I think if you've been able to read between the lines, you've known for the last 20 minutes, but it really kind of became obvious. Matt Van Epps, the Republican nominee for Congress in Tennessee's 7th District, has won the special election to replace Representative Mark Green, the Republican who resigned his seat. Van Epps defeating Democrat Afton Bain, 3/4 of the vote now in. It is an 8-point margin for Van Epps. It may climb still as more votes come in. But this is a district, again, that Donald Trump won by 22 points last year. He won it by 15 points in 2020. It is a district where polling last week, somewhat surprisingly, showed a very close margin of 2 points, a flood of national attention from both parties in the final days of this campaign. And I think it seems pretty clear Republicans talked about waking up their base with that flood of activity in the last week. It certainly seems, based on the performance of Van Epps with Election Day voters, people who went to the polls today and voted, didn't vote early, went today. Van Epps is getting big turnout, it would appear, and massive margins, enough to withstand strong early vote performance from Bain, strong performance, I would say, overperformance from Bain in Davidson County. So again, Matt Van Epps, the winner of Tennessee's 7th special election. Folks, stay tuned if you're still watching, but I got to do an update for News Now. You're going to get to watch that. I got to keep my mouth shut for the...
How can my brand appear in AI search? How can I boost digital brand visibility? Introducing SEMrush One, uniting traditional SEO and AI search tools, all in one place. Measure and grow everywhere you're discovered. One solution to win every search.
You know, what's interesting about this district is there's a big Democratic area right here. It's the city of Nashville, or it's part of the city of Nashville. And you know what? Afton Bain, the Democrat, did really well here. We're still waiting. There's more votes to come in from there. But this is a massive margin for Bain here. She won. She's leading by 65 points in Davidson County. She got a very high turnout in Davidson County. So that was a very encouraging sign for her. But what has happened as this map has filled in tonight is we have seen in rural Republican areas, in more swingy areas, and critically, I think, in the suburbs, the well-to-do suburbs of Williamson County, immediately south of Nashville, I think Van Epps exceeded expectations, and I think he did it with a flood of late interest in this race. One of the things, Gotti, that we've been tracking as these results came in tonight was the difference between the vote that was cast early. This was cast weeks ago, days ago, the early vote, versus the election day vote. The folks who woke up today, decided to go out and vote, and did so in person at the polls. There is a massive difference between how these candidates did, depending on which vote we're talking about. Bain won the early vote. Van Epps has an absolute landslide in the same day vote. Republicans, Gotti, talked about this race drawing national attention in the last week. They talked about Bain having taken some far left positions, having some inflammatory rhetoric in the past. They said they had shined a light on that. They had woken up Republican voters in this district. Maybe they had woken up swing voters in this district who may not be nuts about Trump and the Republicans right now. And they had turned those voters against Bain and motivated them to vote. Looking at the turnout that we're seeing same day, I think there's some evidence in these results that that is what happened. So again, overall, Republican district, typically Trump won it by 22 points. Republicans were, I think, kind of panicking a bit last week when polling showed this to be close to a dead even race. But Van Epps ahead by 8 points. I think there'll be some more Democratic vote to come here out of Davidson County, Nashville, but there's going to be an awful lot more Republican vote. So you may be looking at a margin that finishes somewhere right around what you're looking at. Republicans, I think, Gotti, would love to see that number go high and be able to say double digits. We'll see where it ends up landing. Yeah, well, I mean, that's, again, the backdrop here. I'll just show you. This was the result in this district in 2024. Donald Trump won the district by 22 points. I could wind the clock back farther. It was 16 points. I've been saying 15, but he won it by 16 points in 2020. So you're talking about traditionally, staunchly Republican areas. Again, I think one of the questions coming into tonight was, you know, Democrats want this thing to be, they obviously want to win it, but they want this thing to be a squeaker. They want this thing certainly to be in single digits to say they've got momentum. And I think they can certainly, you know, if this thing were to still land in single digits, they'll make that argument. And there's a lot to be said for that. We're certainly seeing a very motivated Democratic base there. But one thing Republicans have been saying, too, is they think next year, even if there's a difficult political environment for them in the midterms, you know, they think the Democratic Party has a bit of an image problem. You know, some of the folks who sort of have become national faces of the Democratic Party, folks like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mamdani in New York City, you know, Republicans think they can turn some swing voters against Democrats, you know, tying them to those kinds of candidates, those kinds of positions, and motivating Republican voters to vote against Democrats. There's some evidence, I think, just based, again, on this same day vote, that Republicans got a lot more interest in the final days of this campaign. I think that's what they're going to talk up coming out of this. But yeah, overall, if this lands at 8 points, Democrats are going to be able to say they made a pretty big stride in a very Republican area. Okay. Folks, that was News Now. That was Gotti Schwartz again. Gotti, so kind to let us to do that. I mean, look, you heard what I had to say there, trying to put these thoughts together on the fly. What occurred to me while I was saying that, and maybe I'll kind of expand on it here, is I guess to me there's two ways of looking at this result here. There is that big picture. You know, this was a Trump plus 22 district, and again, we're looking at 8 points right now, and I'm just kind of looking at, you know, if the I'm just extrapolating it here. if the current margins kind of stand in all these counties as they come in, yeah, I mean, I think you're probably looking at, we just got Davidson, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'll finish the thought. I know we're a bit all over the place here, but we told you all results. We just got most now of the results in from Davidson County. Only a small scattering left there in Davidson County. That might be absentee vote. That might be vote by mail. So you can see here the margin for Bain is sitting, that's 80 to 19. That's a 62-point margin for Bain right now. We'll see how that comes in with this final scattering of votes. That's a big number. That's a big number. This was a 38-point district in 2024. Harris won it by 38. You're looking at 62 right now. That's a net improvement for Bain of 24 points. And we were saying all night, Democrats have that target of 22. Well, they're going to exceed it in Davidson County. But frankly, again, this being the most Democratic part of the county, to only get barely over 22 there, they needed more. Believe it or not, you're looking at numbers like that, and they needed more. And if they weren't going to get more there, they needed more elsewhere in the district. And I think the biggest disappointments for Democrats on the map tonight, right here, the suburbs, Williamson County, the votes continue to come in. It's getting more and more Republican as those votes come in. Also up here in Montgomery County, where Clarksville is, again, we still got a quarter of the vote to come here. That same-day vote is favoring Van Epps. We said at the start of the night, this is one Democrats to have a shot wanted to win. And then just in the same-day turnout, the election day turnout, Bain getting swamped by Van Epps in the rural parts of this district. So what's this going to all add up to? Well, now that we've basically got Nashville in, you can see it's still a little bit more than a 4-point margin district-wide for Bain. Outside of that scattering of votes still to come in Nashville, everything else that's going to come in, the final quarter of the vote here, I think you can expect is going to be a pretty Republican vote. So I think this is kind of as close as it's going to get for the rest of the night, unless in the next 30 seconds they suddenly give us that final scattering from Davidson. But this margin is going to grow. Are we looking at a race that ends? This is Montgomery, excuse me. There you go. This margin is going to grow as the rest of the results come in tonight. Is it going to be 8 points, 9 points? Could it get to 10 points? I think there's a sort of a psychological question there. Republicans would love to get this to double digits, say it's double digits. But what I was saying there a second ago before we kind of got diverted by Davidson was, I guess there's two ways of looking at this. I think there's that sort of big picture global way of looking at it, that this is how Democrats want to talk about it. They're going to look at this and they're going to say Donald Trump won it by 22. Let's say it were to end at 8 points tonight. Bain brings it down to single digits, gets a 14-point net improvement in a deeply Republican area. That spells trouble. Typically, that's the kind of a special election movement away from the president's party that has spelled trouble in midterm elections before. So they will say, well, it's not a win for Bain. While it wasn't necessarily a squeaker, it was double-digit improvement in a very Republican district relative to 2024. And I think likely it's going to end somewhere in that. That's probably going to be true. Again, we'll see where the final margin lands, but I think that's probably going to be true. And again, we got 83%, I should say, 83% in right now. I'm just looking at this and registering it to myself. The other way of looking at it, and what I was saying a bit in that hit too, though, is that we've seen gains for Democrats in other special elections this year. We saw a 22-point gain for them in Florida. We saw, a 16-point gain. I think in 2 districts we saw a 16-point net gain for them. And we saw a poll last week that put this race at only 2 points. And I think there was talk that I think everybody in both parties acknowledged it was a long shot. It was a long shot that Bain would actually win this. But I think there was a thought that this thing was going to get, seriously turned into a squeaker. Bain may have a chance there, an outside chance to win it. And what I'm seeing in the same-day vote here is I think we saw higher same-day turnout maybe than we were expecting. And I think we saw that same-day turnout more Republican, especially in places like Williamson County, than we were expecting as well. And so one thing that I'm thinking about there is, is there a story there for Republicans as well that they may take away from this about how to wake up their base? How to maybe win over some swing voters. They thought that Bain as a candidate was a very ripe target. And they're going to try to, a lot of the attacks they made against Bain are attacks they want to make against the National Democratic Party, and they want to use in districts around the country next year. So, did they see in this final week, wake up, look at a close race, maybe a depressed Republican base? Did they succeed in waking up that base, maybe turning some swing voters against Bain? And again, they would love to get this final margin up closer to 10 points and be able to say, hey, look, once they got voters to focus, they got some traction here. So I think that's the story Republicans would like to tell. Seeing where this final vote, where this final tally lands, again, I think that 10-point thing looms, is sort of, again, psychological, but, it could be significant here. It's a 5-point margin right now, 85% in, a margin there of about 7,200 votes. Just taking a look right here at what is left to come. Anyway, when I start saying it probably means it's about time to wrap this up. So, folks who stayed through this, who joined us, who were part of this, thank you. This was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was a fun way to watch this. I hope this is something we can maybe do a little bit more of for primaries for other elections next year. Love to hear your thoughts. Share them, I guess, in this YouTube link or tweet me or whatever. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining us. And again, Matt Van Epps, the Republican, going to survive a scare here over Afton Bain, the Democrat. Final margin, TBD. Democrats will certainly say, with justification, that they managed to shave a lot off a very big Republican margin in a very big Republican district. Republicans hope that they can walk away from this saying, they found a way to generate late traction against the Democrats in a challenging political environment. That'll be it for our live stream coverage of Tennessee 7's special election. I'm Steve Kornacki. Thank you for joining us.
When I saw the domain was available, I was like, I'm taking it, I'm trademarking it, I'm going with it. Hi, I'm Aaron, I'm the owner of Cuppa Pug. I wanted the word cuppa, as in cup of tea, I thought it would be great to mix with pug. When I first saw it go live, that's when it all clicked. Well, was that nice?
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here, see it here, and see it here, so you stand out. Even when they're way back here. Get 15% off signs and banners at Vistaprint.com.